I'm Richard B. Beeman
Beeman?
Martin Jr. I was born and raised in Norfolk, Virginia, Norfolk Community Hospital. I was the son of Richard Beeman Martin Sr., who was the priest at Grace Episcopal Church in Norfolk, Virginia. I attended Booker T. Washington High School in Norfolk. And because I went to summer school, I graduated somewhat early ahead of my class and was accepted and attended St. Augustine's College in Raleigh, North Carolina. I had a degree in a BS degree, and immediately after college, I went into law school at North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina. I graduated there in 1970. Backtracking, St. Augustine's College is now St. Augustine's University. After law school, I went to work with the state of North Carolina. I started into what is almost a revisit of the gas crisis we're having now.
Yes.
They were allocating gas back in 1974, and that was my first job, determining who, where, and what eligibility standards they met to receive gas.
We were related. I was serving National Guard.
Yeah.
And I had to get to Fort Jackson, and I was going to school at UNC.
Okay.
And I couldn't get gasoline to go, and I faced court-martial.
Oh my God.
But I got gasoline, it wasn't court-martial.
Oh, well, good. That's good.
Yeah.
After that, I ended up working for the Department of Crime Control and Public Safety. I did work in public housing. My area was working with law enforcement. I was later chief of the Crime Prevention Unit of the Governor's Crime Commission, and we tried to bring public housing imagery out of the shadows. We tried to introduce the youth to figures that they could relate to as opposed to drug dealers and the bad side. After that, I ended up working with the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, and at that time, I guess I retired in 2008. And after retirement, I moved to Lawrence, South Carolina. And here we are now.
And joined St. Stephen's.
And joined St. Stephen's.
There was a liberal governor, Jim Hunt.
Jim Hunt, I worked for him as well.
and he did some of these, despite North Carolina being a relatively conservative state, he got a lot done.
He did,
with civil rights.
Yes, he did.
But those days are over.
Long gone, exactly.
Yeah, I'll be.
You know your history, well, you were there at the time,
I was there, and they paid me to do this.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, keep going. Tell us about, tell us a little about St. Stephen's.
St. Stephen's, when I arrived in South Carolina, I looked for a church. I don't know how I found St. Stephen's, but I'm so glad that I did.
Me too.
At the time, I did not transfer my membership, and I was still a member of St. Cyprian's in Oxford, North Carolina. When the vote came as to whether or not we would remain in the Episcopal Church or not, I was told that unless I was a registered member, I could not vote. So that's when it hit me that I needed to transfer my membership, and I did. After that, I attended services on an irregular basis, and over time I increased my participation, and I guess 2 years ago I applied for the position of associate vestry member. And fortunately or unfortunately, someone resigned their seat in the middle of the term, and I was appointed a full member of the vestry. And to that point, I'm still on the vestry for a 3-year term. That's where we are.
When I teach the kids over at Coastal Carolina, I tell them about Virginia having black people on the vestries in the 17th century because they just didn't pay attention to color. But then, of course, Virginia's history is so long that eventually they do segregate off.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of these things we think were that way always were relatively recent.
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard this history, but the Episcopalians in the black community had the reputation of being the more upstanding and the more well off.
Yeah, better
educated. And the story used to go that if you were a black man or woman seeking to join the Episcopal Church, one of those black churches, on the outside there would be a brown paper bag.
Yes.
You've heard this story?
Yeah. Tell it, I love the story.
If your skin was the complexion of a brown grocery bag, you could possibly be considered. Yeah. And then there was a comb. And if that comb would go through your hair,
yes, if that gets stuck,
if that gets stuck, you could be considered. How true that is, I don't know, but I've heard it all my life.
I reason think it's true. I've told the kids it's true.
Okay then, yeah.
And the same thing was said at Howard.
Was it really?
And when Benny Mays, who's very dark, came to run Morehouse.
Okay.
He was asked, will we let in dark-skinned people? And he's very black. And he said, they're going to let me in. But anyway, he quit making them put pictures
of himself
on the application.
Oh, yeah.
So that you really wouldn't know dark people.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I even put on the final, I put the brown bag test.
Okay, yeah, the brown bag test, that was...
Yeah. If it wasn't true, it should have been. Well, I was brought into this church by Miss Dot Bonds. It was one of the Brown families.
Okay, oh really?
And of course then related to Roddy and Colbert and
Hannah.
I was, we were visiting the area often since 1967, and we would usually go over to All Saints, which is not anymore. And then
they pulled out?
They pulled out.
Okay.
And then we began to go to Prince George, which made a large people pull out.
Okay.
And then we discovered this place.
Okay.
And Tommy was the priest. And we decided to renew our baptismal vows.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
It is. And then we just buried Miss Donna not terribly long ago.
Oh.
She's buried in the same cemetery.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, it was, she had a long and happy life.
Well, that's good.
Long and happy life, yeah. Well, then she was always very, very clear that I think she called it the quality of this church.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, keep going. Tell me more about St. Stephen's today.
St. Stephen's today, as a matter of fact, we just finished a rather hectic week in terms of a rummage sale that the church has sponsored for over 50 years. And I'm slowly being introduced to the various phases the church is involved in its outreach community. But that rummage sale runs twice annually in the fall and then in the spring, and people come from all over the country just to show up and buy. The first day of the rummage sale, everything is full price, from furniture to jewelry, clothing, you name it. The second day is half price. And the third and final day, which is usually Saturday, you walk in and you purchase a bag, a shopping bag, for $2. And everything you can get in that top shopping bag, that's it.
Yes.
But any of the larger items like beds and furniture, you can negotiate because they want to clean it out instead of storing it until the next time. Every Tuesday they hold a yard sale of sorts. Every Tuesday, and they've done so religiously. They have a committee. They have an outreach that makes them very prominent within the area and beyond, and how civic-minded and looking out for others they are. If they're homeless, people who knock on the pastor's door and say, I need something to set up an apartment, they go to the rummage room where they've got all this stuff and take what you want.
We're related.
Good.
My wife is right now with the Episcopal Church figuring out the next fundraiser.
All right.
Those bags over there belong to Renee that drove out of here.
Yeah.
Like the back leaving the Belfry and
Yeah.
But she takes food to people in the western portion.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And she grew up over on Ford.
I didn't know. I'd like to know where on Ford she was.
We'll organize that.
Yeah.
Because this is not the last time we
Okay, and we also do Meals on Wheels.
We need to talk so we can start doing some of the stuff y'all do.
We have a men's group that they call it Romeo.
Yes.
Retired old men eating out or something like
Yes,
that.
yes.
And they get together on a regular basis and just go to a local restaurant for breakfast.
We're all a little more like we realize.
But I guess the leadership that Father Merchant is one tremendous person. I mean, he in spite of his recent setbacks with his surgery, he bounces back and he does it all. He does some of everything. He's a jack of all trades. And the parish loves him.
Good. Well, and we're, like you, we have pretty good news from Bishop Ruth.
Yes, matter.
We can actually go and push through. You know, we wanted to phase the lawsuit.
Oh, really? Okay.
And,
Okay.
This is in communication from her.
Okay.
And we're told to not boast and brag and swagger around because it's miles to go to Europe.
Yeah.
Before we can sleep, but we can go to Camp Christmas.
Oh, good. Now that was something they tried to take away.
We did. We had to pay.
Yeah. My
The
goodness.
first few years it wouldn't even much more.
Oh, no.
We got it back.
And the property value now is the churches and all of that. Where does that go? Is that? That's what they're arguing still.
There are
Yeah.
about 16 churches that are with what was the Laurentians.
Okay.
Whatever. And but a couple of churches have come to our way.
Good.
We've got certain properties out, and most important for a story, let me get the bill for you. Oh, okay. Well, we're interviewing a gentleman here who remembers all about the church. We've always got people doing stuff. We'll get the main archives that were closed to us will be reopened to us.
Wonderful. That's
And
good.
eventually, and of course, there's the Cathedral of St. Luke's that is with the other people. And they'll apparently keep the building where the church is, but we get all the records.
Okay.
And so it's a complicated decision. And we're maybe at first base.
Okay. Well,
Yes, yes. Well, tell me now about your ancestors.
what little I can tell you, we started coming down, I guess, in the 50s from Norfolk, Virginia. That was summer vacation. School was out. My mother was a teacher. My father a priest. And we would drive down from Norfolk, Virginia. The ritual was getting up early in the morning, and the night before my mother was cooking fried chicken, pound cake, and potato salad. and we'd have some iced tea in a jar, and we'd take the ride and experience the road and all that we could see. It was a troubling time for black motorists, in that they could not fill up at every gas station. If they could, they probably could not go to the bathroom. So we were somewhat sheltered in that I did not know this was why we didn't do restaurants. We would pull off to the side of the road. There'd always be a picnic table, and we'd have fun. It was like a camping trip. I had no idea we could not. And when we come to South Carolina, I do recall we had relatives in Columbia. As youngsters, we would go to the movie, but we had to sit in the balcony. We came to Paula's Island, and Grandma, we call her Grandma Brown, she would always keep us entertained. She had a dirt yard, and on a daily, regular basis, she was out in the back sweeping the yard. She had a chicken coop, and she raised chickens, and she had a pear tree next to the outdoor john. But those were the sweetest peaches pears I've ever had.
Yeah.
But at nighttime, my brother and I were often afraid to go out to the john, the outhouse. But they had little bedpans in the house that you use overnight. But she was a great cook. She was comical. She hummed and sang to herself. She walked about the house humming and singing, and she was in a pleasant state all the time.
That's great. And but your childhood is really Norfolk.
Norfolk.
And then here is kind of summer trips.
Well, just a week, and we drive back, and that was the end of it. We'd get conversations on the phone, but for the longest time, she didn't even have a phone, if I recall. But as she got up in age, she would come to us in Norfolk and spend quite a lengthy time.
And she too was brown?
She was Viola Martin, and she lost Ben, and she married Washington Brown. I believe that was his name. And we called him Daddy Wash. And that's where the Brown end of her name came. And she had Richard Martin, my father. She had Garnett Martin, who was my brother's name. She had a Benjamin Martin. They called him Pete. And under Brown, I think he had Otto Brown. There was Vivian and Lois, two sisters. And they're all deceased, all of them. As a matter of fact, in retrospect, Glenn Brown is my cousin, and he was the dorm matron at St. Augustine College while I was there.
And of course, he attended here.
He did, and I did not know he had passed. I did not know he was ex-military. And
still there?
yeah.
Well, you then are some kind of distant cousin of Brian and Cobra Brown.
I don't know those names.
They've given me a tree.
Okay.
Going back to the Litchfield plantation.
Oh, really?
Where there was Abraham, who had no last name.
Oh, really?
Then he had his son Watson, who made Louise, and they took the name Brown.
Oh.
And then they had a generation of kids. I got their names, and then the next generation is Roddy and Colbert and Johanna.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
Doc that brought me to the church.
Oh.
So I can show you the tree, and we can get you. And you'll have to meet Roddy.
I would, yeah.
Well, tell me, your father gives such detail, but a lot of this you knew by reading the book, I guess, right?
Some of it, yeah.
But
and I reread it every now and then to just refresh.
Well, walk me through some of the things in here, what he told you and what you read.
About Peak, South Carolina. That's the one place I want to go, and I've not ever been. And I'd one day like to make a trip there. But
It's Hebrew County.
yeah, it is.
Right.
When he wrote that book, my mother was deathly ill, and she wanted the book completed before she died, and he tried as best he could to put it together. When he had completed it, she did not like it.
Yes.
She did not like it, and she criticized him as a teacher. She'd go
Yes.
back and this and that.
That's how my wife
But
used to do it, yeah.
he stuck by it, and at his death at the cathedral in Long Island, Staten Island, where was it? Anyway, they gave out almost all the remaining copies of that book, and to this day I'm still getting requests to have one, and I don't have but one.
Yeah, Father Ryan, this one.
Is that my father's? It is. That's his signature.
Yeah, he
Oh,
signed
yeah.
it for John Connolly.
Oh.
And then John Connolly passed, and this went into the
Oh my
great
God.
market in Father Ryan now.
Yeah, he was. You could tell from his. He had a very pronounced signature, but you could tell he was fading.
And
Oh, my gosh.
real shaky.
Wow.
Which in a way makes it more dear.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
It is. And the history is just kind
That's where I majored in history. I love my history.
Now, it's St. Augustine's.
St. Augustine.
You know of the historian John Hope Franklin.
I do. He was one of my teachers.
Okay, well, tell me about that. 'Cause see how he had.
That was interesting. He was. Oh my gosh, that was the biggest figure that I had met at the time. And he brought his own book that he had written, but we had to turn them back in at the end of the semester. He was a no-nonsense professor. He taught. I don't even think we had time to ask many questions. But he was he was telling us stuff that we never knew about.
Yes, from slavery to freedom.
That's the name of it, From Slavery to Freedom. My, you just, yeah.
Well, that was, I guess I met him in 1978 and recorded an interview.
Oh.
And turned over the typescript of the Southern Historical Collection.
Okay.
But I met him in St. Louis.
Okay.
And he was, so he and Van Woodward and maybe two other men, no women, they've been president of the Southern Historical Association, the American Historical Association, and the Organization of American Historians.
Oh, okay.
The three major
Yeah.
professionals. He was the president of all three. And, of course, he made his name in Chicago, and University of Chicago, and then brought black scholars to Duke University.
Oh, okay.
And I met him when he was still in Chicago.
Okay. Wonderful.
Well, that book was, well, I knew he got a sense of it.
Yes, he did.
I didn't know.
And in retrospect, it just hit me. Charles Bowen was the astronaut who later on became head of NASA.
Yes. Yeah, I got that name right.
But yeah, I enjoyed that time in his class. John Hope Franklin.
You know who his name for?
Yeah.
The Atlanta University complex was established by John Hope. And he was as white as that painting.
Oh.
And he had blonde hair, blue eyes. Was very proud of his whiteness.
Okay.
And he took Morehouse and Marshmallow and the Black Women's College.
Spelman.
And then at Atlanta, the undergraduate, and he combined everything complex. And he even worked out a way they could share heating system.
Oh, wow.
And then if you wanted to do graduate work, the Atlanta University was the graduate school for all. Because I was up students.
All right.
And he was quite interesting man. And see that Woodward, who was close to John Franklin, told me that John was named for John.
Okay.
And he didn't tell me that. So I didn't
Okay.
know who that was.
Okay.
So
I didn't know.
he lived through such a difficult time, despite his glories, that near the end of his life, he became a concert job.
Did he really?
Things that really got bad in the depression.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Well, he had glories before.
Yes, he did.
So, I'm glad you said it, John.
I did.
Then, who was the main law professor at the center?
The main one, I think he had roots in South Carolina. His name was Sampson. I can't remember, he was the dean at the time, but the name was Sampson when I was there. The rest of I'm sure the whole faculty since that time.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's James.
Yeah, my father knew him, so I think there was some connection from being from South Carolina. They had run into each other in the younger generations.
Well, your father tells us the latest story of NWB boards.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Did you read the story? I'm not switching subject about Papa Doc. Papa Doc.
No.
In Haiti.
I know him, but this is the father.
Yeah, not Baby Doc. My father was called to ask, to put together the election of the bishop, whatever the process was. But he spent a year in Haiti, in that area, Port-au-Prince, I think it was. I'm not sure. I thought it was in that book. But when Papa Doc found out he was there and what he was doing, he made it clear in no uncertain terms that he was going to appoint the bishop and he better leave. And that kind of rattled him.
Well, I would think so. Yeah. Well, they were nobody to fool with.
No, not at that time.
Sit outside of the camera range somewhere. Sit back over here in the corner.
Well, how did you feel getting there with your father's warning?
Skeptical, and especially when we got together.
Yes.
We don't go anywhere we don't feel that we would be welcome. But other than that, we've kept in our socially close-knit group and have not experienced any.
Pretty close to St. Stephen's.
Well, St. Steve, she has since joined, well not joined, but she is on a regular basis. I'm trying to convince her to get in full time, but we have not encountered any problems. But this is the wrong place to be, from what I understand, to flash it, you know.
What do you think?
I don't know where we are, sorry.
Oh, how racist are people today with biracial couples?
Oh.
Pretty.
We have not
Some
experienced
places,
anything,
but,
have we now? No. We have never experienced anything since I've been here. I guess it's the reputation that precedes.
Well, the Klan was active.
Oh, very much so.
I had some students at Coastal to take maps of the city of Georgetown and look at the Howard School, which was for black kids, where when you got through here, you went to Howard. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of complicated. It's a trip to
Yeah, it is.
Georgetown. But the streets right around Howard, the people that lived there were white. And almost all of them were members of this white supremacy league.
Oh, really?
And they put it there in the town record. They were proud of it. So you're walking through the Ku Klux Klan to go to school. So that's not ideal. And I was a little surprised as my kids were working on this research that somebody wouldn't have hidden that first. But I'm glad they didn't, because I'm glad to know. But there was no shame about it.
Well, I think South Carolina, for the most part, at least where I am, is tourist country.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's from the north.
Yes.
And from everywhere. And it's I think the identity of being they're just in the South.
Yeah.
And that's the reputation.
They're, Jesus spoke of being in it and not of it.
Yeah, exactly.
They're in it and not of it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm of it.
Okay.
And then I reformed.
Yeah.
But I'm very conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, white people talk to me differently than they would.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if I keep quiet about my various.
I understand, yeah.
And I hear some pretty rough stuff.
I'm sure.
Particularly in most recent years compared to the earlier.
Yeah.
Years. I remember when Obama spoke of a post-racial society.
Yeah.
It was hard not to laugh at such things.
I know.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, I understand.
Not to laugh at it, because I was hearing something the opposite.
I know. I can imagine. And they're still singing about it.
Oh, it's gotten probably worse. And when they do the alcoholics counseling, they tell us you'll have to hit rock bottom before you come back.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've hit the bottom yet.
And I don't want to see it hit the bottom, but it's probably going to take something like that.
I think before we get going back.
Yeah.
So, what other things did your father share with you about doubts and worries and apprehensions and?
He always told me not to talk politics, religion, and those were subjects that you didn't discuss openly with people. And I used to ask him. I used to accompany him every time I get a chance to go places with him, and I'd say, "Can you wake me up at such and such a time?" It would be 7, 6, and he'd say, "If you want to go, you'll get up." He would not wake me up, and I was always up. And
that's wonderful.
That's been the way I look at things now. I'm up before I'm supposed to be up. So I carried that over, but from the standpoint as a child growing up, I guess he brought some of the same teachings that his mother gave him. He was a father. I loved him dearly, but when it came to being the pastor of the church, you could see the difference. And there were times, I guess, I wouldn't know if I knew it. He was surprising me all the time. I couldn't understand how he could give the service to bury his mother. But he did. I just couldn't see that.
That's mind-boggling to me.
He did it. He presided. And that completely baffled me.
Well, Father Ryan is working to get us actual archives, and we'll be happy to put the holiday
Oh, okay.
in there, along with this book and others that I've accumulated. Don't know how much to say that I shouldn't say, but someday this building will not look like it does now.
Yeah, someday, sorry, I'm jumping in, but
No, you're talking.
our staff offices are upstairs, and getting accessibility to the staff offices.
Yeah, that's,
So we will need to build an office building on the ground floor, and so that frees up what this building might become.
okay.
And there are a number of ideas. I think, probably obvious, doesn't have to be said, is some sort of living museum, and ideas for that, range from, like decorating upstairs as a house, and period, see how people lived in the period, but then also how the Forsyths lived,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing would be interesting. I don't think we could get away without using this downstairs as a parish hall.
Mhm.
We still develop another one, but it would be fun to set this up as a one-room schoolhouse like it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Another idea, thinking the other direction in time, would be to put a full bathroom upstairs with showers
Oh,
and
yeah.
that sort of
Okay.
stuff. And the young adult service corps of the Episcopal Church, which is like the AmeriCorps.
Yeah.
A lot of those people want to go to seminary one day, but not all of them do. But we could have housing for 5
Oh,
or
that's
6
good. Oh,
a
that would be
year,
great,
and they
yeah.
would serve the county and the community.
That would be
You
great.
know, so a couple ideas.
That's great, yeah. Did that pump out front come from in here?
Yeah, it doesn't work, but it's.
But- oh, yeah,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah, and I don't know if that's the place that it was, but most people do remember one out there. But
I remember when we come to grandma's, that's what she had was the
Mhm.
pump, and we couldn't drink the water. It tasted and smelled like sulfur.
Mhm.
And it was a nasty taste, and that's one of the memories I have.
That was one of Erasmus Baskerville's tasks.
Oh, was
To
it?
persuade people to be careful with their drinking water
Oh, really?
and to be generally careful with their sanitation.
Oh, really?
And he spent probably as much time not only trying to set up schools,
Mm-hmm.
reading, writing, arithmetic, as public health.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Hmm.
things us clergy have to do.
I know.
It was tough on Jesus too.
It was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how have you been?
I've been well. One of the things that I missed about the pandemic that I didn't realize that I missed so much was vacations.
Yeah.
So we took one after Easter.
Good.
Feeling very much renewed and once again rejoicing to be Jack's
I know.
priest.
Yeah.
Not that I wasn't before, but
Father Merchant got stuck in the same thing, and
Yeah.
he hadn't had a vacation.
yeah, it really helped. And
I'm
it
sure.
it was nice to go and meet some folks and all that. I feel like in the ministry there is some prestige left.
Yeah.
Some,
Yeah.
certainly not the way it used to be, but when I travel, I sort of rediscover that prestige. And
Well,
for better or for worse, that matters to me.
I wanted to give you an apology because it was an oversight. Between that 8 and 10 o'clock service, nobody was there for you.
Oh, I don't mind.
Well, I just thought that in retrospect, and I
Oh,
thought,
yeah.
I assumed somebody
I only
else.
had about 5 minutes to
Oh,
sit by
okay.
myself.
Okay,
really. Yeah.
okay.
I didn't mind one bit. In fact, the organist was going to Starbucks, and she said, "I'll get you something."
Oh,
too."
wonderful.
So I was
Well, I'm
fine.
glad to hear that much at least.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it won't happen again.
No, it was fine. I enjoyed being with y'all.
He missed Renee by, she was driving out,
Oh yeah.
and I was hanging over the door trying to explain to her if she could stop 3 seconds. She had to meet this
Yeah,
guy,
don't get Renee to stop.
but she was already late to the
Oh, I know
next
it.
round.
I
But I
didn't know
explained to
about
him.
Ford Road, yeah.
And we've agreed we'll have to bring Roddy to meet him. And
Well, I've got a picture of that house on Ford Road.
But we've got to.
You
we've
got
to-
one?
No, we've got to get a copy
We
of
need
that.
Oh.
things like that really bad.
Yeah.
I've got a copy of it, but it's from the back porch and it shows the dirt yard. And
That Miss Viola would sweep.
I don't know. Maybe better than mowing.
yeah, a whole lot better than mowing.
I got to do that.
And he was taught by a man that I knew, so we do have
Oh, cool.
connections, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I miss about traveling was finding those connections.
Yeah.
You know, and the further afield, the better. I think, or the more precious.
I was impressed with that slave cross in your chapel.
Yeah.
That is from Holy Cross.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those same people have the old school bell, the
Oh,
ones that gave
really?
us the cross. And I'm thankful for the cross.
Absolutely.
But I asked
Which
for,
we can't.
but I asked for
They
the
had that
bell.
bell.
I asked for the bell, but they seem to be somewhat attached to it.
I guess. Mm-hmm.
And they took if you go into the chapel, you can see part of the stained glass windows.
Yep.
They take
Oh, really?
It's called theft otherwise.
Yeah.
I've had a time as I write about that, not expressing too much anger, and just letting there it is.
That's
Yeah.
Are you writing a textbook or a novel?
Mm-hmm.
Because emotion has its place in a novel.
That's true. That's true.
I don't have a copy of it with me, but I can send you one. If you give me an email address, I'll email it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go get one of Ryan's cards. It's
Okay.
One less forward to do his day.
Because Ryan is,
Yeah.
you did meet Ryan, right? Because he's the associate rector.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because
Kind
he's,
of stocky.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
sort of the history guy.
Oh, okay. I did meet him. As a matter of fact, I didn't meet Father Will until about the end, and he was sitting in the back the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now tell me, you were talking about when I'm ahead. You were talking about your mother, and she was actually in charge of a school here.
My grandmother,
Your grandmother, yeah, was in charge of a school here,
as far as I knew, I thought.
and that's described in your father's.
Yeah. Okay.
book. The bishop didn't seem to know,
Okay.
and I can't find that, which doesn't mean it didn't happen at all, it just means a busy bishop missed some things. But apparently, your grandmother was in charge of one school, and your grandfather in charge of another school.
And that's why I was asking about what's the name again? Thank you.
There's Holy Cross.
Brook Green.
Brooklyn, yeah.
And I did not know about.
Brook Green was, I think our records say this was Brook Green. And they would speak of Holy Cross Brook Green being.
No. So where the sculpture garden is.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Okay. That was the Brook Green plantation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also a shipping point.
Oh.
Because on that part of the river back there, to get to the Waverly Rice Mill, that was a big kind of port that went through. I mean, it was only once a year, but
Yeah.
it was a big kind of gathering ground. So the chapel at Brook Green Plantation was substantial.
Okay.
And so the congregation was substantial. And when the Huntingtons bought Brook Green, best I can gather, nobody will actually say this stuff, and they're all gone now. I can't say it anyway. But the timing matches up that they purchased 40 acres here, gave it to the diocese, and then all of a sudden everybody from Brook Green Plantation moved to Parkersville within the next year.
Okay.
So there's a couple of different ways to look at it. One is that the church made a deal with the Huntingtons to move everybody off,
I got you.
or what I pray is would happen is that come move here, we'll give you a place to live, and it can be yours. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's in the middle of resegregation.
Right.
And I can't find it, but people that have fooled around with the Huntington's papers, I work at the park.
Okay.
They tell me that the Huntingtons were by no means opposed to segregation.
Right.
And segregated the
Interesting.
workforce.
Yeah.
And would any work they did, it was for what they call colored people
Yeah.
who were to be in the colored community,
Okay.
which was Annville, Georgeville, Parkersville.
Okay.
I think also if you look at their contemporaries, I'm from Asheville.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
And so the Biltmore House
She was from a place called Rutherfordton.
You put way too many syllables in that. It's just Rufferton.
When I lived there, the locals would tell me they could always tell that I wasn't from there because I said Rutherford.
But in Asheville, they built the Vanderbilts.
Yes, yeah.
Did the same thing.
Okay.
In fact, they built a church there in Biltmore Village for the workers, but only some of them.
I got you.
Because there was another church built closer to town, and it was the segregated.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Interesting.
yeah. So that seems to be, I don't know if I should call it a fad, but it seems to be in fashion of that. That part of the upper crust during that time, the captains of industry, to segregate their workers that way. I know there's been two examples that I know of. The other church was St. Matthias in Asheville, and it was the African American mission, just like this was for far too long. You know, it got parish status. I think Matthias got parish status when I was growing up, so that would have been in the late 80s. It's a similar story. You know, they had a couple hundred members from, 100 years, and they were a mission parish.
Okay, yeah.
So.
Do you have a copy of that?
I did, but I don't anymore.
I was able to get one.
Somebody borrowed mine. Somebody gave me one when I got here, and somebody borrowed it, and they don't live
got
here
it back.
anymore.
You
No,
remember
they
who?
moved away.
I was able to buy it on the Maxwell family, put it up for sale on.
Yeah, I've never seen one for sale.
But anyway, we need to get our attorney friend one, but I don't know how to go about doing it. I'm gonna give this to the church when I'm gone.
I'm not gonna let anybody borrow it.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
They're really hard to get. I've got a request into ABE Books, who does a lot of used books.
For looking for that.
Yeah, but it's been a few months now. I've never had this long to wait on the book.
I used to go to Williamsburg, and there was a used bookstore. I mean, we're talking 40 years ago. They could get used, but now you just go to Amazon and just keep Googling, and maybe you'll find it, maybe you won't.
It's the same with car parts.
Yeah.
Yes.
One fact that I didn't, I was taking off on a tangent.
Yeah.
My grandmother did come to stay with us periodically while we were in Virginia and when we were in New York. As she aged, they put her in the Episcopal home, but she died.
And this was normal?
In New York.
In New York?
In New York.
Wow.
And
so they're equivalent of St. Louis, huh?
I'm sorry?
Must be their equivalent of St. Elizabeth's.
No, it'd be the equivalent of Bishop Gaston.
yeah,
Okay.
the wing was called Bishop Hughley's wing, yeah. But it's now taken over it's a Jewish hospital.
Right. I don't remember.
Was it St. Mark? No, not St. Mark's, it was can't remember.
So Allen is Presbyterian, Bellevue is State. I'm trying to compare through all the hospitals in New York.
Yeah.
I don't know which one it was, but.
Allen's Presbyterian, right? Not,
Allen
not Methodist, but.
Allen University?
No, Allen Hospital.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hospitals,
Yeah. No,
So that wouldn't be the Allen that we know.
no, Allen is where Myrtle was the head of the ER department. For my first kids,
Oh, wow.
she died of COVID. Remember that story?
I do remember that.
Hmm.
Well, going before we turned on the camera, you were speaking of the Rev, Forsyth with his Gullah Geechee.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, it was amazing as a little kid trying to interpret what he was saying. It was almost comical, but he could ramble on. But that was I had never heard the accent before, and I have since learned about this being a port of entry in Charleston as well as New York being a port of entry, and the accent is very, unless you know West Indian from the goer.
You know,
It's hard if you've never heard him before.
yeah. And do you remember anything else about William Forsythe?
That was the one outstanding. He was always laughing. He had a loud voice, if I can recall. We only see him when, as I said, when we came through. But he talked very loudly, very loudly. Even if we were just sitting around the table, he was very loud.
Still teaching.
Probably.
Yeah. Or a preacher without a sound system.
That's he had to.
Yeah.
He had to.
Illinois is saying that he wished his white parishioners knew their prayer book. And of course, he's talking about, I guess it's 1894.
Yep.
Prayer book.
Yeah, we've been putting that.
None are more
Well,
famous.
that was the one thing that I used to memorize the whole service. But things have changed so much.
Well, what Bishop Davis specifically said was, if you tried to skip over something, they would stop you.
Okay.
We want to hear that part.
Yeah, and another story that kind of goes along with that you might be able to comment on. There was a move early in my time here, so about 8 to 10 years ago, to start singing African American spirituals.
I knew a good friend of mine wrote an introduction to that hymnal. Yeah, it was Harold Lewis.
Oh,
He gave the obituary at my father's funeral.
yeah.
And I have never been at St. Cyprian's.
Yeah, he wrote the
Yeah. I got his speech too
Oh,
from the obituary that he gave.
is that something you'd let us have a copy of?
Yeah. I apologize for my brother, but I think, as I told, was it you? He has a daughter who is suffering from how shall I say? Down syndrome. She was given a year to live when she was born in New York. And she was in a home in Charleston, and when beds were needed, they put them in the same home with her for COVID. She came down with COVID, survived, but at this point she is in hospice, and they took her out of the hospital, and she's at home with them, and has been, and they have to keep constant in their presence at home, otherwise he would have been here.
Right.
But under the circumstances, he just doesn't leave the house.
Well, other times, we've agreed this isn't the last.
No, let's do this. But one thing I wanted to ask, so there was a move here for, African American spiritual, Amazing Grace,
Yeah.
Swing Low, Sweet Tea, those.
Mm-hmm.
And I witnessed a white lady in the congregation come up to one of the older African American ladies.
This is how
He didn't want to call names.
Oh, no, well, then you're really fooling with me. Yeah.
So anyway, so this innocent, not so innocent white lady goes up to Miss Johanna and she says, "Isn't it great to be singing all the songs that you grew up singing in church?"
Oh.
To which Miss Johanna replied, "That was the Baptist church that sang these songs. We were Episcopal."
That's, yeah.
So my question is, this place and the congregation seem to be set apart from the other churches, to me, and none of the pastors have been here long enough to know, but we've talked about that there's more, well, to speak plainly, the opinion of some of the other African American church towns is that the African Americans who go here don't want to have anything to do with them. Is that I'm not.
It goes back probably to what we were talking about,
The brown bag
bag syndrome. We've got AME, CME, and that whole story.
Missionary Baptist.
And I don't think in my childhood I did go to one of Daddy Grace's. But other than that, I don't think I've ever visited. And if I did, I kind of laughed at the service. You know, you kind of chuckled at how they did things. But right now, I guess, not as a criticism, some of the hymns, I've never heard them before. But we don't do spirituals.
Right.
But some of the hymns that we've even started singing, usually it's a customary thing within the parish. But
Our choir master, I don't know how old he was, but he inherits these hymn literary voice, and he was told by Roddy and Gilbert, and also Lucille, that we don't sing any of those.
Well, and I think it was because so many people, they don't, singing them or not, it's all right. I don't think that's the issue. It's just that they were tired of other parishioners coming up and saying, these are your songs that we're singing.
I understand.
And they never sang them growing up.
That's exactly right.
And
Yeah.
Mr. Johann said they did that at the Baptist church, not here.
Yeah.
But in looking at that, there has been, and I don't have an exact quote, but I do remember Dolores at Mount Zion. She said, "No, y'all when I was growing up, y'all were uppity." So
I can believe that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Well, there was a level of education a little higher.
maybe, yeah.
And this group, what I'm finding is they're really hung together from pretty far back.
Yeah.
Even if you couldn't get, so like having Ben Martin he's filling in this giant blank space. But before you got him, you've got lay leaders. And I think they took it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at the composition of the vestry where I am, and I noticed it when I came to the counseling. Women are very prominent on the vestries that I'm seeing. In my day, they were all men in my childhood.
Yeah, acolytes are the same way.
Yeah, and crucifers and all of that.
Yeah, I think we've got.
And bishops.
Fair enough. Yeah, 100% of the bishops in the Diocese of South Carolina are female.
Are they really?
It's only one.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Got me on that. Got me on that one.
But yeah, no, that's a big change. And we, I think there's a desire in this congregation to have more African Americans in leadership, but they already are, whether they're on the vestry or not. And that's up to the
Speaking their mind, as you would say.
Well, but that's up to the rector to hear those opinions,
Yeah.
whether in a formal vestry setting or not.
Yeah.
They mean the same to me. I
Yeah.
can't say that applies to all the parishioners,
Oh, I agree, yeah.
but yeah. What is the best way for those? This is a loaded question, so you may want to think about this before we come back. But in your mind, Mr. Martin,
Richard.
what is the best way for this church in this season to honor your grandparents, all those folks that have come before? What would do your heart good to see?
That's a hard one. I'd have to think
Think
about
about
it.
it.
I do know
such book as
they
ours.
were not the type, they wanted to be pushed out, up in front, bowing, and that was not their demeanor. And let me think about that and talk with my brother as well.
Good.
That would be, because that's sort of the question. We're at a place now at this parish, and I may have talked to you about this a little bit before, but we've taken care of the bills. We're very close to doing so, and we're seeing the end of a season where we had to take care of ourselves. And what the next season that comes, I don't know what it looks like yet. And so I'm asking a lot of questions like that. How do we, in your mind, how do we honor those that have made this place what it is? you know, because with every sort of change, with every sort of either any change in leadership or any sort of change in season, you gotta be really careful about what you put in the knapsack, you know, pull all the corners, because you can't take everything with you, and you don't want to.
Right.
But some things are vital, and in our history, in our past, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this archiving stuff now, is we need to.
Now, on a kind of technical point, Ben Martin was not actually ordained, right?
I don't know.
Okay, Father Ryan thought in reading here it wasn't that he had gotten, we had that same deal about Delaney
Yeah.
from North Carolina, supervising
Yeah.
black ministers in South Carolina. Well,
I did not even know about the affiliation. All I know is the campus.
right.
And as a youngster, I knew that they took it dear to heart. I did not know my grandfather, I never laid eyes on him. The Martin, Ben Martin. I understand he's buried in Jenkinsville. But it was all through Grandma, and as I said, she was always singing songs, church songs, and to tell you, I don't even know if they were spiritual songs. But I just...
I'm thinking they weren't, because I think she was
Yeah.
festival.
Yeah.
Well, the songs that a few of the songs might be categorized as spiritual.
They could be, yeah.
But they're not, they wouldn't pass muster in
In the Baptist church.
No, they wouldn't go part of the Baptist church.
I'm trying to remember what we did for, what is it, Father Merchant. Who was the black guy, Amy or?
Oh, Richard Allen?
Richard Allen.
And Absolute Jones?
What songs we sang on that particular Sunday. And I don't remember them being spirituals, but you see, we weren't singing because of COVID. They had no choir for 2 years?
Yeah.
So by the time we were really active, do you remember any spirituals or anything? He just gave a very on-subject sermon, but I don't think we went to singing anything along the line that would...
You weren't all in your cars singing?
Not at that time, not for the album.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was a little jealous at Wilmot's idea. I mean, I'm glad we got Marsh, don't get me wrong, but he looked like he was having a bit of fun.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has helped me.
Well, I'm glad it did, and I'm going to think about that other matter.
Good, and I may just try to come and meet your brother.
He's in what's the name of it? This side of Charleston.
I'll think of it in a minute.
Mount Pleasant.
I may just try to go there and talk to
You think your car can make it all the way up Mount Pleasant?
him. It probably
Sorry,
can.
I heard that joke this morning, and I
Okay.
needed to throw it in.
Yes.
Let me arrange, because we don't even go under the circumstances at this time.
Maybe we can go together.
Yeah.
Well, there were several things I wanted to show about the footprint over here. And why don't we go do that if you wish?
I would. I'd love to see that.
Have you ever been upstairs here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen,
Just today.
that's got,
Was that the tapestry that's in the vestibule over there? Did that used to hang on the staircase here?
I don't think so. I may have for a little bit, but that tapestry was made for that building.
Okay. 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 Well, thank you.